Hello viewers, thank you. Thank you very much for your support, and I really appreciate your valuable time. It really means a lot to me. And once again, thank you to those who raise a concern on my video and asking the present novel for explanation. Well, today we will be doing something different. That is a novel called A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. In my former videos we have been doing poetry, but today we will be dealing with a novel because this was requested by some students. Well, I hope you enjoy the video. First, let us learn about the author's background. Who is Charles Dickens? Charles Dickens, who is often known by his name Charles Dickens. His full name, or his actual full name, is called Charles John Hupham Dickens. He was born on 7 February in 1812 in Portsmouth, and he died on 9 June 1870 in Kent. He was the second child of his parents, John Dickens and Elizabeth Barrow, and had 7 siblings. John Dickens and Elizabeth Barrow, they had 8 children, and among the 8 children, Charles Dickens was the second. He belonged to a very financially weak family. They were very poor. His father was imprisoned in the year 1824 for unpaid debts. His father works as a clerk in the Navy Pay Office. Then his father was forced by his creditors because he could not pay back his debt. And he was put in Marshalsea debtors prison in Southwark, London in the year 1824. So because of all this, because his father went to prison, Charles Dickens, though he really liked to study, he had to discontinue his studies at the age of 12. So from the age of 12, he became the bread earner of the family. So he began to work in a boot blacking factory, and he earned only 6 shillings a week. The name of the warehouse which he worked is called Warren's Blacking House, which is a factory, and his actual work was to paste labels on pots of boots blacking, and he earns only 6 shillings a week. However, because of his poor background, he was not a man to give up. So he went to this Wellinghouse Academy for 2 years. Then he worked as a clerk in Gray's Inn, and later on he learned Gurney's systems of shorthand, and he became a freelance reporter. So despite lack of all these things, he made himself presentable today, right? And today we are reading his novel. So despite his lack of formal education, he edited a weekly journal for 20 years. He wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and non-fiction articles. He lectured and performed readings extensively, and he was an indefatigable letter writer. Means he was a very energetic letter writer. And he campaigned vigorously for children's rights, education, and other social reforms. He has a very disturbing childhood, right? He used to work in a factory, and he did not like that thing to be repeated to other kids. So, he campaigned vigorously for children's rights, education, and other social reforms. And, because of him working in all such blacking factory and all, he has this kind of experience, and he portrayed all his experiences in one of his novels called Oliver Twist. And not only that, because of the many hardships that he had faced in his life, because of his situations and conditions, he portrayed working class people in most of his work, and it has become a major theme in his works too. That is about the author's background. I'm writing it as short as possible. Now about the novel. This novel, that is A Tale of Two Cities, was published in weekly installments from April to November of 1859 in his own literary journal called All the Year Round. So this novel, A Tale of Two Cities, was not published as a whole book. It was published bit by bit in installments from the month of April to November in the year 1859, and it was published in a journal owned by Charles Dickens called All the Year Round. and he got the idea for his novel from Wilkie Collins' play The Frozen Deep, which he played the self-sacrificing hero. For those who are not familiar with Wilkie Collins' play The Frozen, I'll tell you what the play is about. The play is about, it involves a love triangle story, where Charles Dickens played the role of Richard Wardour, and Richard Wardour was the self-sacrificing hero in the play, Wilkie Collins' play The Frozen Deep. Anyway, we'll not emphasize on that because we're not going to learn about that. What we want to say here is that he got that idea, self-sacrificing hero, from Wilkie Collins' play The Frozen Deep, and he portrayed just like that in his own novel A Tale of Two Cities by the character Sidney Carton. Sidney Carton was also a self-sacrificing hero in A Tale of Two Cities, which we will learn later on. Anyway, coming to the next, A Tale of Two Cities is in part a historical novel. Sometimes this novel is also called a historical novel. Why? Because history is confronted with the conditions that led to the French Revolution, which raged from 1789 to 1793, and involved an overthrow of the aristocratic ruling order by the lower classes, followed by the Reign of Terror. See, in this Tale of Two Cities, the story or the novel opens in the year 1775, that is just before the French Revolution. Then it will go through during the French Revolution till the Reign of Terror. And we all know about the French Revolution, right? The causes of French Revolution was mainly because of the political conflict between monarchy and nobility over tax reform. Then we have another causes is because of the Enlightenment, as in broadening the influence of public opinion. After reading Rousseau's Social Contract book, they were awakened from their sleep, and they were enlightened, and they started forming their opinion. And not only that, there was this social antagonism between aristocracy and the bourgeoisie. Then there is this economic hardship, there was shortage of foods, there was this agrarian crisis in the year 1788, and because of all this, there was this outbreak of French Revolution. And this thing will be portrayed bit by bit in the novel A Tale of Two Cities. Will come across those causes in the novel too. I'll give you one example. You see, there was this social antagonism between aristocracy and the bourgeoisie. Aristocracy was represented by Charles Darnay. Though he rejected the social regime, in the eyes of those working people, he is always the noble man. And Madame Defarge, on the other hand, she represents the bourgeoisie, and she really hated Charles Darnay. So even for the sins which he had not committed, just because he belonged to the aristocratic class, because of the sins committed by his uncle and his father, Madame Defarge will try him. Will accuse him of those sins, and then he will be arrested and he will be sentenced for that in the guillotine. Okay, so we will come across those type of things hinted in the novel. That's why sometimes A Tale of Two Cities is called a historical novel too. And this novel is built around a great and stable love story. When you read the novel, you'll come to know that you will be able to read from this angle too. It's a stable love story. The love story, of course, Lucy Manet and Charles Darnay, they both fell in love and they got married. But what is great about the novel is that you see Sidney Carton, who also loves Lucy Manet, he became a very self-sacrificing hero. By giving up his life in place of Charles Darnay, so that Lucy Manet will find happiness. And Lucy Manet's happiness is his happiness because he loves Lucy Manet truly. So this can be read as a great and stable love story too. And the setting of the novel is in London and Paris in the latter half of the 18th century. This novel is set in two places, in London and in Paris. That's why even the title is called A Tale of Two Cities. The two cities, London and Paris. So these are the things, these are the points which you have to know about novel before coming to the actual part of the explanation. Now we'll do today up to the summary. I will summarize it for you, and you wait for my next video. In my next video we will do the characterization and analysis. So for today I'll narrate the story. I'll give the summary as short as possible. So to put in a nutshell, I have come up with some key points. So let's go through the summary. A Tale of Two Cities takes before and during the French Revolution. The novel takes place just before, that is, the novel opens in the year 1776, then it goes through the French Revolution, that is 1789 to 1793. Anyway, Jarvis Lorry is traveling to Paris to reunite Dr. Manette with his long-lost daughter Lucie. Dr. Manette has been living in hiding in Paris, awaiting his rescuers who will return him to England. So these are the key points. Now I'll tell you how the story opens. It opens in the year 1775, and during this time Mr. Jarvis Lorry is traveling to Dover to meet Lucie Manette. Lucie Manette is Dr. Manette's daughter. However, Lucie Manette till up to this time thought to herself that she was an orphan. She has been told that from young age, but now recently she learned that she's not an orphan. She has a father, and the father was imprisoned in Bastille, and the father has been released from Bastille, and now he's taking a shelter in Madame Defarge, and they will be reuniting soon. So they went to with Jarvis Lorry, Lucie Manette, they went to Paris to meet their father, and they meet their father. Then they came back to England in London. Now 5 years have passed. 5 years later, Lucie marries Charles Darnay, who confesses to Dr. Manette that he is a member of the French ruling class. You see, 5 years later, this is the key point, but I'll come to this too. I will continue from here. 5 years later, you see, Charles Darnay, he was accused of being a spy in London, and he is on charge for treason, like providing English secrets to the French and American during the outbreak of this American Revolution. So what happened was that during this court trial, Sidney Carton, who is a lawyer, who saved Charles Darnay by telling the court that they exactly look alike, and then he precludes that any positive identifications, and the court allows Darnay's acquittal. Then he is saved from this trial. And during this time, Lucie Manette, she was also one of the witness. And after seeing Lucie Manette, the funny thing is that this Mr. Stryver, who was a bombastic lawyer, and Charles Darnay, and Sidney Carton, the three of them, they all fall in love with Lucie Manette. But who did Lucie choose? Lucie chose Charles Darnay. So you know what? Although they make an attempt to woo her, she favors Charles Darnay, and eventually she marries him. So 5 years later, Lucie marries Charles Darnay. However, Charles Darnay had a dark side, which nobody knows. But Charles Darnay is not a bad man. He's not bad at heart. So he confessed to Dr. Manette. He told Dr. Manette that he reveals his identity, that he was the nephew of Monseigneur Marquis Saint-Evremond, that is the sole enemy of Dr. Manette, because of whom Dr. Manette was imprisoned. He was arrested on false charges because Charles Darnay's uncle and his father, they were committing a heinous act or a heinous crime, in order to prevent Dr. Manette from speaking out or ratting them out. Before he does that, they let him arrest Dr. Manette. For Dr. Manette, at his standpoint right now, it's very difficult as a human being, as a normal human being, to forgive right away to someone who is your enemy's nephew, right? However, Dr. Manette, he's a kind man, he's a very compassionate man, so he still forgives Charles Darnley for those revelation. Then Charles Darnley, and Charles Darnley told him that he is actually a member of French ruling class. However, till now he rejected that social regime. He does not like that, and he rejected it. Then the two of them got married. Okay, Lucy Manette and Charles Darnley, they got married. They got married. Then Charles is hoping to bury his past and begin a new life in England. When Charles Darnley returns to Paris to save a former servant, he is arrested by the revolutionaries and sentenced to death. You see, after confessing to his father-in-law, Charles Darnley is now hoping that he would build a new life, and he wants to bury his past and start afresh. He wants to begin a new life in England with the love of his life, that is Lucy Manette. Then they have one kid. They were married happily when everything was going normally, when everything was going as it was supposed to be. Then what happened was that in Paris, his uncle, Monseigneur, he was murdered, okay, for the crime against the French people. You see, Gaspar had murdered him, and this means that after his uncle's death in their family, the next in line to inherit the aristocratic title was none other than Charles Darnley. So Charles Darnley, whether he like it or not, he has to go to Paris, and he has to accept the title, but he does not want that, and he didn't go. But so the French people, what they did was that they arrested Monsieur Gabil, that is actually a former servant of Darnley's uncle. As he was arrested, Darnley do not feel good about it, so at an urgent request of this Monsieur Gabil, he went back, or he returned to Paris, and in Paris he was arrested. And this time his arrestment is because of what? Because they said that he belonged to the nobleman, and because he was an immigrant, aristocratic immigrant staying in London. So he was a noble, and he was an immigrant, and he was thrown into jail. So what happened after this? Sidney Curtin, who resembles Darnley, trades his place with him in prison and dies in the guillotine on his teeth while Darnley returns to London. He was sentenced to death because he was an immigrant nobleman. However, I told you before he went, he told Dr. Manette about his returning to France, right? So Dr. Manette, along with his daughter and along with Miss Pross, they followed Darnley to Paris, and Dr. Manette uses his power among the revolutionary, because he was also a former Bastille prisoner like the people, and he was oppressed by the ruling regime, and within his power he tried everything to release him. And when he was almost released, okay, what happened was that Charles Darnley was once again denounced by the Defarges, and this time the charge is what? The charge is even stronger. The charge is that Monsieur Defarge revealed that Charles Darnley is the nephew of Monsieur Saint Evremond, and they found out about him, about the Evremond revelation of their sin by Dr. Manette. Dr. Manette had kept the document in his cell, and it was found that in the document it was reported that Charles' uncle and his father had raped a peasant girl and killed the brother of the peasant girl, and they were afraid to be ratted out by Dr. Manette. That Dr. Manette was arrested on false charges, So you know what, because of, let's say in short, because of the sin committed by Charles' uncle and his father, now Charles is accused of that sin. Why? Because the girl, or let's say the peasant girl who was raped, was none other than Madame Defarge's sister. Okay, so Madame Defarge and Monsieur Defarge, they were the revolutionaries. They were one of the leader of the revolutionaries, and they will not let Charles go away with it. So they brought him back to prison and sentenced Charles Darnley to death. And there was no hope that he will be saved. He was sentenced to death. However, Sidney Carton, who resembled Charles Darnley, he went to Paris. Followed him because he has this selfless love for Lucy Manet, and he persuaded John Bursard that he would take him to the prison where Charles Darnley was kept. And he went there, and they drugged Charles Darnley, and they took Charles Darnley safely out from the prison. And in place of him, Sidney Carton stayed in the prison, which people mistook him for Charles Darnley. Okay, and he sacrificed his life. He died in place of Charles Darnley in the guillotine. And while on the other hand, Charles Darnley and Lucy Manet, they returned to England safely. So this is about the summary of the novel. The setting of the novel, the place took place in London and Paris. Sometimes it is in London and sometimes it is in Paris, and the year is the latter part of the 18th century. That is, it started from 1775 and it lasted till 1793, the Reign of Terror. So this is the summary of the novel. I hope you understand, and stay tuned for the next videos. The next videos I will try to make it as soon as possible. Anyway, enjoy your time ahead. Thank you once again, and bye bye to you all. See you soon.